a podcast about amazing people from an incredible state. Amazing Arizonans with Mike Broomhead.
Another edition of Amazing Arizonans, and this week I'm going to do my best not to cry, because it seems like whenever this guest is with me, some story is told that makes me cry. It's Shannon Clancy, the CEO of St Vincent De Paul. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. It's so great to be here with you.
I think ever since the first time I met you and you started to tell me about the involvement you had with St Vincent De Paul, and at the time, what was your role? Was it PR? What was your...
Fundraising. Yeah, development fundraising.
When you would take me around the main campus of St Vincent De Paul, I was always blown away by the complexity about how comprehensive what you do is. So I want to get to St. Vincent de Paul, but I want to start with you. What motivated you? What led you to the life of St. Vincent de Paul and your dedication to the organization?
Well, I think certainly I had some experiences growing up. I think I grew up here in Phoenix with a wonderful family that provided me with everything I needed. And I don't think that I knew that wasn't always what everybody had until I got out in the world and discovered that. So when I was in college, I had the opportunity to participate in a program called Urban Plunge that let me come to my own hometown over Christmas break and spend a few days with organizations that were serving people living in poverty. So I came, and my college had an affiliation with some of the folks that were running Andre House. And so I spent time downtown with Andre House when it was a house, right? Before they had their... I went to St. Vincent de Paul's dining room, which was in a different place than it is today. And though I had grown up in Phoenix, my dad worked downtown. I don't think I'd ever been west of 7th Avenue down there. And I just had no idea. I saw all these people experiencing homelessness, and I had no idea that was there. And I kept thinking in my, I'm 20 years old, and I was somewhat idealistic and probably also very naive. I couldn't figure out why we would allow that to happen. Like, why there could be people out there in this country that couldn't get what they needed to live the life that we all, strive to live. And once I saw that, I just couldn't look away. And so I went back to school, and it sort of changed my direction. I knew I wanted to do something where I could use whatever gifts and talents I had, all the experiences I had growing up, that then I began to realize weren't the same for everyone, and try to figure out how I could do something to contribute. And through, a winding road like they all are, that eventually led me to St. Vincent de Paul, to be with an organization that can feed, clothe, house, heal, to provide for some of those basic needs for people who have nowhere else to turn for help. But also in a dual mission to provide opportunities for people to find meaning and purpose and joy and service. And it's those two things that I think have really allowed me to come alongside some wonderful people who really have a heart for caring for others, but also recognize that that's really the way that we're meant to live our lives. And over my whole professional life and personal life, I think that's what I've really seen is the people who are most joyful in life are the ones who pour themselves out into service, that they live their lives for other people. And I have the great privilege of being around those people every day.
What were some of the things that led you on that journey after college? How long before you joined St. Vincent de Paul, and what led you there?
Yeah, so I had some different experiences. I spent a year as there was no AmeriCorps at that time, but I spent a year working with families, a transitional housing program for families who were experiencing homelessness in Northern California. I spent some time with a wonderful school in Baltimore where I worked alongside several sisters and brothers, nuns and brothers who were helping educate kids from low-income families, and a variety of different experiences. And then we were in Baltimore, and there was a family issue that kind of compelled us to come back home. And so we came home, and to be honest, I'd done all these different things, and both my husband and I, we needed to find a job. And we had a friend, a family friend of a friend who worked at St. Vincent De Paul, and they said, you should go talk with Bill. Bill knows a lot of people, and maybe he'll help you get settled back here in Arizona. And I went to St. Vincent De Paul, and they had an opportunity for me to work part-time there. And since then, I've had, I have 4 kids now, and I've gone back and forth a little bit with St. Vincent de Paul, but it's just been a real privilege. And I think I found a home there with people who care deeply for others, that you have this influx of volunteers and partners in the community who are bringing their energy and joy. And that's really, so I always say, I did need a job. So that's what led me to St. Vincent de Paul originally. But I found a home there very quickly, and certainly it's the mission and the opportunity to work alongside people who are just extraordinary, both who work there and who volunteer, and partners and donors, and so many people that has had me stay all these years and really find a home, and this great opportunity to find that joy in service and in coming together with other people to care.
I want to talk about so many aspects of St. Vincent de Paul and what you do, because I think people need to understand the enormity of what you do in the community you serve. But to touch on what you said about being a little bit naive or maybe not being exposed to things when you were younger, one of my favorite things to do, and we've taken volunteers to St. Vincent de Paul, and you graciously allowed us to bring the Action Alliance in, was the people that had never done it before. And so we went and prepared a meal, and it was at the dining hall at Cass. And so we prepared the meal, we set the tables up, and everybody was anxious to do some kind of service. But to see the people that had never experienced it, and then when the doors open, to see the numbers of people, and it just seems like the line is never going to end. And to see maybe the only hot meal that those people are going to get that day, the looks on people's faces the first time they deal with it, and then to watch them sit and talk with people in the dining hall. It's life-changing for many people. It opens their eyes like it opened yours. And there have been so many people that have went there thinking, I'm going to go do something good today. And they left there feeling like, I can't believe what this did for me.
Right.
You got to experience that so often.
No question. And I think that's something that people tell us all the time. For some have been exposed to a lot of the situations that we see every day. Maybe they lived it. And other people, like I was, hadn't ever seen it. And so when you come into a place, into parts of our city where you may never have been before and you haven't seen that before, it can be really hard. And I think people might have a reaction like I did all those years ago, like, what is, how can this happen, right? But the reality is that may be the path for people that have just hit a bump and they didn't have family or something, or a series of somethings went south in their lives, and so they end up there never expecting that that's what's going to happen. But when people come into that space, I think what they find is, despite that there is a lot of suffering, right, that there's great joy and there's great love. And that's because when people come to St. Vincent de Paul, whether it's their first time or it's their 1,000th time, we bring our hearts.
Yes.
Right? We come to say, I'm here to serve. I'm here to share whatever it is. And I think then that does come back to us. A lot of folks say, I think I got more out of this than I gave. And you say, you know what? Perfect.
Yeah.
Right? That's exactly right. Because then you'll do it again. And it makes our lives better when they're living them out, outside ourselves.
It's the difference between seeing it out of your car window, seeing it on television. We can see it. Experiencing it is different. When you sit at a table in a dining hall and you have a conversation with someone who's enduring it, and you make a connection and you realize there's not much difference in their life than mine, and I could be sitting in that chair just as easily, and you start to have a bond with someone just for a few moments. That experience is, I think, what touches people, is they realize they see the humanity in it. It's not just a problem anymore. Now it's human beings. And I think that connection, if there's ever going to be a solution, if there's ever going to be some kind of dramatic drop in this situation, it's going to be those connections that do it.
I think you're very right on that, Mike. I think it is that experience because we stop processing it intellectually and then we just see the humanity in it. Just like you said, that it's people just like me. And, we hear that expression, there for but the grace of God.
Absolutely.
Go out. And I think that's what happens, that when we see one another face to face, we realize it could be our brother, it could be our sister, our mother, our father, it could be us. And we interact differently, and it becomes something that's not just a community challenge like poverty or hunger or homelessness. It's just people, and people who in that moment are struggling, and perhaps we can offer them our kindness and compassion, and that comes back to us. And I think that's that healing power of service that sometimes people who come to volunteer with us or to work alongside us might have something in their own lives. They might not be suffering from a lack of physical feed, clothe, house, heal, but maybe there's a lack of spiritual. You have something, there's something missing in your life. And what we see at St. Vincent De Paul day in and day out is that there's great joy, there's great healing that comes when we have experiences where we connect with one another and we come alongside like-minded, like-hearted people to just do good for one another, to care for and love one another.
And I would never want to put myself in somebody, I speak for someone else, but for the people that are coming in for a meal, anytime we've been there, there are some, I think, you can see that they almost feel out of place, as if nobody really cares necessarily, or they're kind of outcast and they're an afterthought for people. And then a conversation may happen, and there's a connection made where people, it's like you see me as a human being.
Right.
You don't see me as a problem. To witness that happen for me, I mean, I'm sure, I don't think it ever could become commonplace. But when I see something like that happen, it makes me so happy to see that no matter what the circumstances, we can still have a human connection.
Right. And I think sometimes people who are out there, if we're talking about people experiencing homelessness, they say it's really hard to not have your basic needs met.
Yeah.
But even harder is to feel invisible.
That's
that no
the
one
word I was
sees
looking
you,
for.
that nobody ever calls you by name, that nobody knows your story. And so
or avert their eyes when you...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and we do that often because we're uncomfortable, because we know that that's not right.
Right.
That everyone deserves love and respect. And so at St. Vincent de Paul, that's what sort of infuses all the programs, and there's so many different things that we do, but it's really that idea that each one of us has great value, that we deserve that love and dignity and respect and compassion, and that when we create that common ground to bring people together, that really sparks that joy in everyone. And it's so much. It reminds me of I met one of our, we have transitional housing too, for veterans and for people who are 55 and older or who are living with disabilities. We're expanding that program, so that's really exciting. That's going to come be ready. Another 100 beds at the end of June. We'll be able to move folks in. But I was talking to one of our residents, and I asked him, it's called Ozna Manor. I said, Bob, what is it that's so special to you about Ozna Manor? And he paused for a second, and he started to cry. And what he said was that it was that for the first time in a long time, maybe ever, that he felt that he mattered. He realized that he mattered to people, and that those people mattered to him. And that in all of his turmoil that he had gone through, he forgot. And he, now that he realized this, it changed him. I mean, he was filled with this joy, right? And he said, I feel called to live my life in a way that I can help others. And it really just reminded me that it's not so much the food, the clothing, the housing, the health care. I mean, that matters, and people need those things. But in the end, we all really need to know that we matter to other people, and that other people matter to us, that we're connected to one another. And that at its heart and soul is what St. Vincent de Paul is about, right? Is giving people opportunities to experience experience that, like you said, and to come together in the community.
And I want to touch on the enormity in a moment. I want to talk about some of the enormity of the things that you try to accomplish. But my first visit, I think we've talked about this before, my first visit, you were showing me around, and I got to meet a lot of people that work there, a lot of the volunteers, and then a lot of people that were there to receive help. And I honestly couldn't tell the difference between any of them. The employees, the volunteers, and the people that were recipients of care, that when you talk about treating people with dignity, there wasn't I honestly could not tell the difference. And it was encouraging to me that it wasn't a process. It wasn't an assembly line of here, take this, here, next. You are invested. You are invested in people's lives. That impressed me more than anything else that you were doing that day.
Well, and I think that we are infused every day because we rely on volunteers from the community to come in and be part of our work, right? And as you said, some days it's the first day, some days they've been there day after day for years, right? And you get that sense of love and care and compassion that reinvigorates the mission every day. And that is an important piece of it.
But you can get, as a volunteer and as bringing volunteers, you can get caught up in how many food boxes did we package today? How many meals did we serve? How quickly were we able to clean up and be done? But I've never walked away from anything at St. Vincent De Paul where that was never the focus. It was always about the relationship. It was about the experience. And I think it begins with you at St. Vincent De Paul and everybody else in leadership, that you foster that relationship and concern for the individual. That feeling permeates everything you do from an observer standpoint. I see it every time I'm there.
Well, and I think also where that comes from is St. Vincent de Paul is structured a little bit differently than your typical nonprofit. And so really our leadership, our board leadership, and the members, quote, of our nonprofit are really people out there making home visits. We call them Vincentians. They're special volunteers. And they are the ones that are getting calls from their neighbors when they're having difficulty, and they'll deliver a food box to their home, and they try to figure out what they can do. And they're just regular people like you and me that are caring about their neighbors. If you go to their meetings, there's people sitting around in t-shirts and shorts and, tennies and sandals, and they're just talking about how
my
can
kind of
they
crowd.
Super, absolutely. And I mean, you'd feel right at home, and so do I, because you look around and you talk about it could bring me to tears. It's just people caring deeply, giving tons of time, everything to help their neighbors in need. And that's really what underlies that spirit of service, is what underlies everything that St. Vincent de Paul does. And it isn't, you're right. And we have to remind ourselves sometimes, because the world measures according to all the things that you make happen. And there's a lot of big things. But it really is that one-to-one connection and that recognition that we can see ourselves in one another, and there's something good for both of us. It's not I'm here to help you. It's I have the privilege to come alongside you in companionship, and I am gaining just as much as you are in that interaction. And that's really the magic, I guess, of St. Vincent de Paul. And that's what infuses our mission and reminds us every day of what we're about. And, this vision of let none be lost.
Yes.
Let none, not one person, not one volunteer who wants to serve, not someone who feels called to do more, or someone who has a need. If they are in front of us, let none be lost.
So let's kind of go down the feed, clothe, house, and heal. The statistic that when I say it to people blows them away. How many meals per day does St. Vincent de Paul provide here in Arizona?
Right now, it's over 7,000 meals a day.
Per day.
Per day, coming out of our kitchen. So we have one of the largest commercial kitchens on our, in the state, on our main campus. That's gone from about 4,000 to 7,000 over the last number of months. And the reason is because as a community, we've opened up more shelters and other places. And one of the ways that St. Vincent de Paul can support that is to, get the efficiency of making the meals in our kitchen and being able to send those out to those places so they can open up as quickly as possible, and you don't have to build a commercial kitchen in every location. And so we are able to do that because we use a lot of volunteers. So put out a plug, people who are looking to help, there's lots of ways to serve. And one of the ways that we've been able to keep up with that is to have crews of people who are coming in, helping us chop, helping us stir, helping us plate those meals that have to go out in a catered way. And that's how it happens. And every day you bring in hordes of people who are all working alongside one another to make that happen every day. That
is a staggering number.
Yeah.
7,000 meals a day. And when I say that to people, they are surprised. And I've said, because you told me, and I've seen the kitchen, largest commercial kitchen, or one of them in the state of Arizona. Nobody would think that was the case. Right. But the enormity of the need and your ability to try to keep up with the money, the talent, the time from people is incredible. And providing a service that is so necessary, feeding them. But some of the other things that have impressed me, watching the transitional housing, I can't remember the name of the facility, where upstairs, where people, and at the end of the hallway is the wall of keys.
Right.
That wall is the biggest accomplishment, I would imagine, in some of their adult lives. Can you explain that process?
Yeah, so that's Ozanam Manor. So that's our transitional housing. Yeah, okay. Well, it's a different one. It's Frederick Ozanam was the founder of St Vincent De Paul in 1833 in Paris. Right? So it's been going on all these years. But Ozanam Manor is the transitional housing. We have 60 people 55 and older or living with disabilities, a lot of them both right now. One of the faster growing parts of the population of people who are experiencing homelessness are seniors. So this is a place that gives people that time they need to get back on their feet, recover from whatever their experience has been, to get the services that they need, and to make a plan to get into permanent housing. And so we have 60 folks with us right now. As I said, in June, we'll be putting another 100 beds and actually renovating a space on campus for another 71 beds after that for people who are working or who are looking for a job, to really try to do what we can to help people get rehoused. And that's a really important piece. So the wall of pictures are pictures of our residents that are holding up their key, which means that they graduated, right? They succeeded. So the whole goal of transitional housing is to support people's effort to get back into permanent housing, transform their lives, and really go on to live the lives that they deserve to live, that they're meant to live. And so that's a really special wall for us. And you see people with their key. The beautiful part about the program, and we've been doing it for many years, it's been on our main campus for the last 7 years or so, but it has a 97% success rate. So what that means is when our residents move out into permanent housing, that a year later, 97% of them are still there. And really what that is just the right kind of care and support, bringing people into community, helping them heal, helping them make a plan that is a solid plan that can stick. And so we're excited and so grateful to be able to, build another residence and to do that, help more people like that and help them rebuild their lives. And it's just beautiful. So the story I told you about Bob, he was one of those residents. Right. So I do want to go back to this piece of it that I think is important. Sometimes we look at those services, like you said, and we think those are the most important. But really, people just want to be seen. They want to know they matter. They want to matter. We all need to know. Sure. We want a purpose. We want to find meaning in life. And we find that by connecting with one another. And that's really the St. Vincent de Paul is just this common ground where we all come together to care for one another, and we all get something out of it.
The looking to keep people housed, to get people housed, people need a job. Correct me if I'm wrong. There are times when people can get a haircut and a shower so they look presentable for a job, clean clothes for a job interview, bicycles, so that they can ride to where they need to go. As silly as that sounds in the minds of some, that mode of transportation can be such an opening of a door for them now to have a wider span of where they can get to for a job. And you provide all of the ability for all of those at St. Vincent De Paul.
You're really trying to give people whatever tools they need and whatever support they need to be able to move forward and to do that. So you're right. A bike can be freedom. Transportation to a job, transportation to the grocery store, transportation to a doctor's appointment or something else. And so really trying to take away some of those barriers that people maybe have experienced in their lives and just help them get back on their feet. And so one of the things that I know we've talked about a lot, we get very focused on the growth of homelessness in our community. Certainly that's contributed to in large level by the tight housing market we have, and
sure.
Rents and people on fixed incomes have trouble keeping up with those. And so sometimes they fall out of housing, and that's very traumatic. It's a very traumatic experience. So none of us would want to think about not having our home, losing everything, being disconnected from everything that you knew. And so you need to come to a safe place. You need to come to a family and a community and have that opportunity to build back. And so St. Vincent De Paul over the last year and a half or so has been pursuing, we made a commitment as an organization. We were going to have 2,025 people rehoused by the year 2025. So that we were just talking today, we're getting close to hitting that goal. We'll be ahead of 2025. And I think what that shows is that it is possible, that we're doing great things in the community. We need to do more of them. We need to all come together and do our part. And so we're just very grateful and proud to be able to partner with the community and help folks that need family for a little while in order to get back on their feet and get their picture on the wall with the little set of keys, right, that says, I did it.
And to feel as if people care enough about them to help them get there. Can you talk a little bit about the prevention? Because there are these levels, the immediate care of people that are experiencing homelessness, getting them somewhere where they're in a shelter so they're not outdoors. But there is also the pressing issue of the people that are on the edge, the Angels on Call program and the others. Who comes up with these ideas? Because it seems so simple. And you think, well, why didn't I think of that? But you've been doing this for a long time. Can you explain it?
Sure. Well, and you're right. Homelessness prevention is a really important piece that we don't always talk about when we think about the growth in homelessness. So even in Maricopa County right now, 2 people are coming into homelessness for every one that goes out. Right? So the good news is one's going out. It means we're doing the right things to get people rehoused. But if 2 people are coming in, we need to stem that flow, right? And the way to do that is with homelessness prevention. And so that's something that St. Vincent De Paul and those Vincentian volunteers that are making home visits, that's really their core job. They are out there at people's invitations when they say, hey, I need a little help. Something happened and I missed a couple of days of work and I'm not going to be able to make rent. Is there any way St. Vincent de Paul can help me? And so that homelessness prevention, just that intervention when people can be stable, but they just need to, a little bit of help to stay in their home, that's really important. And if we can do more of that as a community, then that is also one way that, especially as regular people, private citizens, that we can all contribute to keeping people in their homes. It will stem that tide of people falling out of housing. It's much more cost effective to keep people in their home than to become homeless and have to start over. And it relieves that trauma of what happens for children, for other people when you lose your home. You have to recover from that. And so that's St. Vincent de Paul's core work. That's the foundation, is preventing homelessness. And Angels on Call is one of the programs that we have that invite regular people to be angels, to say, hey, if that mom with those kids might have missed a week of work because she had to stay home and care for one of her kids when they're sick and she's not getting her full paycheck, and she just needs a little help with rent to stay in her home and then she'll be fine, call on me. I can help. and what it's trying to do is recruit people who are willing to be angels. You tell us how much you're willing to do, how often you might be willing to do it, and we'll put you on a list and we will call on you. And it is one way that each of us can contribute, help people stay in their home in that moment. It's a need right now, and you can know that there's all kinds of other people who are right behind you that are willing and able to do the same thing. So that's a program that we're looking to grow for two reasons. One is there's a lot of work that we can all do in preventing homelessness and keeping families in their homes. But there's also something to be able to say that we're part of the solution, right? That each of us can do our little bit. And I think that's a very St. Vincent De Paul thing. We have thousands of volunteers, 4,000 Vincentians that are out in everybody's community. They're all out there taking care of people. We all don't have to do everything, but each one of us can do something, and Angels on Call can make that possible.
And the way I grew up, it's relatable to me, and I don't know that a lot of people can relate, and I'm glad for people that don't, but to realize that you are one disaster away from everything spiraling out of control. Not having the money, not only to buy a tire if you get a flat tire, but I can't afford a tow truck. You're one car repair from not being able to get to work. And if I can't get to work, I can't pay my rent. And within a couple of weeks, I'm going to be without a place to live because my car doesn't work. For those problems to be addressed for someone, that simple repair that for them is insurmountable, but for somebody else, that just keeps them able to keep their heads above water and in their homes. When I heard about that program, I thought, what a great idea to be able to help people in a way that may be small to you, but everything to them.
Right. And I think that's exactly right. If we haven't lived on kind of that, we'll just call it the bubble, right? Mm-hmm. Where there's never enough money for one little emergency.
Right.
The amount of stress that goes into that. And I think what happens for people when they know if our volunteers are going into the home to deliver a food box, if they say, hey, Mike, we can help you with rent this month. It's okay. We've got you, right? Don't worry. We know you're going to be fine. We know this is just one thing. Again, there's a lot of crying at St. Vincent De Paul, so I haven't made you cry yet, but there's a lot of crying.
There are some stories I'm going to ask you to tell that I know it's coming.
Well, but the people cry.
Yeah.
And they cry because somebody saw them and they saw how hard they were working. We think that it's so easy to ask for help. But if we all just look inside, we know that really, now I know you have your own personal story about your mom and just in the worst way, she just wants to take care of her family. Yeah. Every mom, every dad. And what happens to when you know that you have to ask for help, it is hard. Yeah. And I always think I'm kind of an independent person. Even though we all know we all need help sometimes, there's a little piece of you that dies inside, right?
Yeah.
At least for a while.
Yeah.
Because you realize that you're not going to be able to do it. And that stress that is relieved when somebody just comes alongside and said, hey, just like family, it's okay. We've got you. We see you. We see how hard you're working, and we're happy to help you. And you're giving us the privilege of coming alongside you. So thank you for that. And let's help you get back on the road so you'll be back on your feet and you'll be able to turn around and help someone else.
That's another thing I wanted to touch on. I was going to do it later, but let's do it now. The number of people that have been recipients of others' kindness that then come back and become volunteers, or vice versa. The people that have been volunteers that someday find themselves in a situation where they need help. Can you describe that dichotomy?
Yeah. So in fact, I passed one of those folks just this morning in our kitchen because he was serving breakfast to our residents on the line, and he was a man that was in one of our residents in our transitional housing. When he came to us, he had cancer. So he was out on the street, sick, and no access to care, no access to the chemo that he needed. And he moved in with us, and he was able to get access to care. And it took a while to kind of get back on his, to feel healthy enough. He started volunteering in the kitchen, and and again, right? Because when we can help others,
Sure.
it heals us, it gives us energy, it helps us get back to our true selves, right? And he eventually moved into permanent housing, but he still comes back every day to volunteer. And I think there's, I know you can see that it fills him with joy. It gives him a purpose. It gives him people to work alongside. His family is there now. And so we see that a lot.
Do they share their stories with other people that are in line getting a meal? Does he share with them that I was on the other side of this before? And to give people hope that here he is now volunteering, that if he can do this, does it say to them, I can see now that I can do it as well?
Yeah. So, yes. And I would also say even some of the folks that work, over the last few years, St. Vincent de Paul has done more in the space of running a shelter or doing outreach to try to help people be ready to come inside, right? Because that's the best way to end your homelessness. It's hard to do that from the sidewalk. If you can come inside, it makes a big difference. And that is what they do, because the most effective people, whether they're employees or they're volunteers, and we know this, right? The most effective people are the ones who have already been through it, to say, I've been there. I know what it is for you. And I know you can do it. I did it. And let me be that companion. And so I do think that's a huge piece, not only of helping people feel that some of the most difficult challenges that they've gone, like some of our most difficult hardships or sufferings, can be the thing that becomes our greatest strength. When we can come on the other side and be able to be a companion to someone else who's going through that same thing. And so that is definitely something that happens at St. Vincent de Paul. It also sometimes happens where we have volunteers or others who come in and you ask them, oh, what brought you to St. Vincent de Paul? And maybe they're looking for somebody. I came to the dining room to see if I could find my daughter or my son. And so, or people who, and we see it all the time in the community, where you're inspired and feel called to start some sort of ministry for your own healing or to maybe prevent something from happening to someone else. And that's a powerful motivator. And so at St. Vincent de Paul, we just want to provide a space for that. Really all we are is just this conduit of generosity. We provide a space for people to come share their time and their talents and their resources to be able to help others, and then also experience that joy of giving.
The efficiency part of it, I'm glad you brought it up, because we think of being good stewards and immediately money comes to mind. And it's amazing how you squeeze every penny out of every dollar. And I think it's something you should be very proud of. And I hope the community understands how seriously you take the economic or the financial generosity. But you also do it with volunteers, that when a volunteer comes to volunteer, they're not going to feel like they're standing around. They're going to feel like they're effective and they've done something. And the efficiency in that volunteerism is something, that's why I love bringing people there, because they're going to leave that day feeling like they've done something. Where does that efficiency come from? Is it something you are think about and you focused on, or is it just something about the atmosphere? How does that work, that it's every time, everywhere?
Well, I think it comes back to our dual mission, right? For some organizations, you have your volunteer aspect is sort of the extra that helps out the main mission. But St. Vincent de Paul has a dual mission. It says the feed, clothe, house, heal part, and the provide opportunities for people to find meaning and purpose and joy and service are equal. So it really is our mission that when you come and you bring whoever you're bringing, that we want to create that opportunity so they walk away lighter, filled with light and joy, and that's been a good experience. Or they walk away reflecting either on what the gifts they have in their life, like I did, what maybe others haven't experienced in their life. That's an important part of our mission too. And from an efficiency standpoint, really, we don't want to think of it as cutting everything. You really are trying to put the person in front of you and say, what does this person need?
Right.
But our use of volunteers allows us to provide a lot more because we have the labor and talent and support of all of the community that's coming in to work alongside us. And we also, since we're basically funded by the generosity of the community, we have some government support, a little bit more over the course of the pandemic, and lately as we've been asked to support the community in different ways. But for the most part, we're funded by the generosity of the community, and we recognize that no one owes us anything. We have this mission, and we put it out in the community, and we invite people to be able to come and be part of it. But if you are our donor, we need to be good stewards of that dollar. And we also see so many people that need help. You want to make sure that every dollar is being used as well and as wisely as we can. And certainly having extra volunteers to help us allows us to do so much more than we could if we were employing. We couldn't afford to employ people, and we wouldn't just get the infusion of energy and joy when you and your colleagues or your friends come with you, and we get that, we get a fresh energy every day. And then we also recognize that when we can send people back out, we send them home, we send them back to work, they're different. And they're smiling.
Yeah.
They feel like they did something that mattered, that had value. And so that's good for our larger community.
Fostering the spirit of giving. I remember the first time you told me the story I'm going to ask you to tell. It was on the TV show. I wasn't prepared for it. And I was crying before you finished the story. And it was about when you would do the Christmas shopping. It used to be, I don't know if it's still at the Palomino School, but it used to be in Phoenix. And you bring the kids in from it's a financially challenged neighborhood. And the kids are allowed to come in with $1. And they can buy any 2 Christmas gifts for their family members or friends that they could carry out for $1. And it's to give them the feeling that they're able to give to someone. Can you tell the story of the girl that bought the fan?
Right. And it really is the story that our current board president, Shirley Smalley, this was her experience. And it is wonderful. Often we forget kids love to give. Like kids, we think it's about Christmas, that we all want our presents, but actually we all love to give. And the kids get so much joy in being able to find the very right thing. So the kids come in, you're right, they're looking around the thrift store, we still do this. They're finding, they come in for whoever they're looking.
I love this event, by the way. I love being
It's wonderful. There. It reminds you what the spirit of the holidays is all about, that it's about giving, and it's about sharing and loving and giving ourselves that gift of giving, right? So you're right. The child came in shopping around, and they're allowed to take whatever they can carry, right? And so here she comes, and she's got this huge fan, and she's a little girl, and you say, honey, is the fan what you want? Like that's what you wanted? Who's the fan for? It's for my mom, because she has chemo and she gets hot, right? Oh. And so you think about all these things that kids experience, right? Or any of us. I think it's just a reminder that in our hearts, especially kids, they're just geared toward helping. I always think about when kids, let's say they're running on a playground and somebody falls, right? Probably more than one, but at least one is going to stop, and you're crying, they're bent down. Are you okay? I'm looking around for a teacher. Yeah. Can I help you? But there's something that happens when we become adults, and we get our cognitive brain tries to decide, you tripped and fell. Did you trip yourself? Was it your fault? Why did you fall? Yeah. You should get up. And it's so interesting. And I'm not saying that our rational brains are important, because we do, you want to make sure that wherever you're giving or whatever you're doing, but we worry so much about that. And what we see with children is it's just the pure, I see you're crying. How can I help you? And I think at St. Vincent de Paul, the beauty of this mission, from our board, all those Vincentians that are out there, that's how I see that you're crying. You've fallen down. How can I help you? How can I support you? And it allows us to be the purest forms of ourselves, right? That you check that at the door. Part of the reason why Angels on Call is so powerful is that as an angel, you could give. And you can know those Vincentians, they've been in the home. They've vetted that. It's something that is real. And so we can give purely and know that we're helping.
An immediate impact.
And so that's really what St. Vincent de Paul's mission, when you kind of peel back, open the door or peel back the layer, it's really giving us our opportunity to be our truest selves. And it brings out the very best in us. That's why you feel good when you leave.
That story about the girl touched me so much, because we look at little kids and we think there's innocence, there's joy because of being naive. And this little girl is carrying around with her, my mom has cancer.
Right.
And her thought was, I just want to help keep her cool during treatment.
Right.
For a little girl to carry that burden, maybe she doesn't even realize the significance, but every time you tell that story, I just picture this little girl that just wants to help her mom.
Right.
And that feeling of being able to give, like you feel like you've helped someone. I still get that feeling when I go to St. Vincent de Paul. Imagine fostering that in a child and how it changes their life to feel the power of giving. Well,
and we all need that. Right? I mean, we all need to feel that. And I think that's, you ask, like, sometimes people ask, there's a lot. Like, how do you keep going? And I think what it is that idea. I think about that little child, right?
Yeah.
You're right. They know. They might not understand every nuance but kids know. And so I think about, if there's a child or a family, parents who are trying really hard and there's not enough food in their house, or they need to find the health care in order to get the treatment they need to stay and be able to be the mom for the rest of that child's life, or that family is on the verge of homelessness and we can stop it, then we should do everything that we can. And when we do, and we come together, to do that, there's nothing better than that. That's really what I believe we were created to do. We were created to help one another, to care for one another, and to recognize that when we do that, it always comes back 100-fold. It always gives us more than we ever give. And in the end, that's what St. Vincent de Paul tries to make possible for all of us, for me, for you, for the larger community. And it's a real blessing to witness it.
I think the proof of that is what you said, is internally how you feel when it happens. Okay. That when you feel like it's a sense of community and we did this and we helped and we were a part of a solution for another human being, it transcends money, it transcends all of those other awards or accomplishments. There is something that inside you that feels that I've contributed to the welfare of another human being is an accomplishment that you cannot describe until you've actually witnessed it and been a part of it.
Yeah, well, and that's why we invite people to come and have that experience for themselves, or for people who are out there and say, there's just something missing, and I don't know why. I got a good job, I have a nice home, I have everything that I need, but there's something missing, and maybe what it is just that opportunity to be a giver. Right? And to experience that joy that comes back to you. Mm-hmm. And to have the privilege of having someone share their story with you, and you share your story with them, and recognize, to your point before, what our common humanity is. So
if people want to learn more, I want them to be able to go to the website or to find more about St. Vincent de Paul, because we haven't really touched on before we do that, there's one more thing.
Okay.
Medical care, dental care, what you provide in the community to families that may not have health insurance or dental insurance. Another amazing accomplishment that I don't know that a lot of people understand the complexity and the enormity of that need that you help serve.
Well, you're right. So we have a medical and dental clinic for uninsured patients. So people who, they might have lost a job and lose their insurance, people who are between, just people, there's a lot of people that not everyone has insurance or they can't afford it, right? And so St. Vincent de Paul uses volunteers. We have a small staff, and then we leverage volunteers. On the dental clinic side, there's no dental ER. So if you don't have access to care, you don't have access to care. And so we take people in really in a lottery. So if you come in as a patient, you win the lottery, and that means we're going to restore your smile. And what we find is a lot of people haven't had access to care for a very long time. And so they have a lot going on. And when we can start taking away maybe some of that infection, their overall health improves, right? And so we're using dental schools, community volunteers to really give that restored smile to children, to adults. And I don't think I really understood, one, if you've always had access to dental care, you don't really understand the privilege of it, or even braces, right? We do that for kids too, that need access to that. But it also is an economic engine. So if you don't have a healthy smile, you present differently to the world.
Sure.
So there's a story of a lady, you go through, it takes a long time to get you all cleared up if you've got a lot going on. And so in the last visit, they hold up the mirror, like maybe your hairdresser might do. But in a dental clinic, when you've got dental work, they hold up the mirror so you can see your new smile. And she got up and she started dancing around and it's super excited. And she said, I don't have to work in the back room anymore. I can be out at the front desk, right? Because she finally had a smile that somebody could put there. So what it does for people's sense of self, what it does for people's confidence, and what it does to give them access to the workplace is really phenomenal. On the medical side, we've got a wonderful partnership with Creighton. We partner with Mayo, all the different medical schools and other schools that are educating nursing, PT, OT, and what you're doing is providing access to specialty care and just basic care for people who don't have it, and it's extraordinary.
And it's state of the art. I've seen it. It is state of the art. It
is in part, right? You're training students, so they have to be trained in state of the art, equipment, but also you're getting the very best.
They're overseen by great doctors. I've met a bunch of the doctors.
All the physicians and the dentists that we have not only are top quality care and some of the top names that you might know, but they also care about people, so they're willing to share their time.
Yep.
So when our patients come in, they get top of the line care, as comprehensive as they need in order to get well. They get the time from physicians. We can give them access to specialty care within a few weeks, which is different if you've tried to see a specialist anytime.
Sure.
Any insured patient, it can take months for you to get in.
Yep.
This recognizes that if you're uninsured, you can't afford to be sick. And we need to help you get well with all the tools that you need to stay well so that you can just take care of your family. And so that's really what it does. It's a wonderful opportunity to use volunteers, and it's providing extraordinary care for people who wouldn't otherwise have access to it.
All right, if somebody wants to be a volunteer, or they want to be an angel on call, or they just want to learn more about the opportunities that you provide the community, what's the best pathway to do it?
I would just send them to our website, so stvincentdepaul.net. stvincentdepaul.net, and they can go and learn more about all of our programs. They can learn more about Angels on Call. They can learn more about volunteering. And I would just encourage people to explore it. Or if they just want to come and say, I just want a tour. Like, I want to do what Mike did, and I want to come on a tour and just see what you have to offer, and then I'll figure out where I'm meant to be. And I would say, some people say, I actually don't have any extra time. It's okay. Maybe you can share your dollar. You can volunteer to be an angel, and your $100 a few times a year is going to keep somebody in their home. And that's how you're helping. You're helping to come alongside someone in their moment of need and making sure that they can be stable and keep their kids stable too.
And I'm going to warn people ahead of time, it's transformational. That once they go there, once they experience what you do, it transforms you. And I have talked about you so many times throughout the years. I never get down there enough, because the work you do and to be a part of it and to witness it is transformational. This community would not be the same without St. Vincent de Paul and the work you do. And once somebody sees it, you want to be a part of it. It makes you want to be a part of what you do. I want that. I wish I could have that feeling every single day. And it's amazing what you do.
Well, you should have that feeling every single day, because I think you're one of the greatest ambassadors for our work. But I would say really it's our privilege to be part of St. Vincent de Paul, and we couldn't do what we do without the volunteers and the donors and the corporate partners and all the organizations who come alongside to do drives or give a few hours of their time or share a few dollars. And so all that we do at St. Vincent de Paul is create that space, that common ground for people to come together to serve one another. And so we're just grateful for your support, and we do. I invite people, yes, if you feel like you have something to share, great. We would love to have you. If there's something missing, you feel like, or I really wish I could take my kids. We have family volunteering. There's, we all want to be part of something bigger as parents. We want to pass on values to our children of what it means to be a kind and compassionate and good person. Every day at St. Vincent de Paul inspires me to be better, right? It's just like every day there's something extraordinary that you hear about, that someone has gone to all these lengths to help someone. And it's so powerful. It really does fill you with great joy. I'm glad you brought up families, because we were at an event with the Action Alliance. Julie and I were at an event at the United Food Bank in the East Valley. Mm-hmm. And a mother approached me, and she had brought her 10-year-old son. And it was a Saturday. We were packing emergency food bags. Yeah. And she said, I can't remember his name. I wish I could remember this young man's name. He was such a nice kid. And she said he didn't want to come. It was Saturday. He wanted to watch cartoons. I made him come. He walked up to her about halfway through and said, I never realized there were this many hungry people. Immediately the transformation in that young man to realize how fortunate he was at 10 years old, and then to realize he was helping. He came up to me after he shook my hand and said, I'm having a great time. Right. The transformation of that feeling of, I never realized the need, and all of a sudden you're realizing you can be a part of serving the need and learning it as a 10-year-old. That's amazing. Well, and when we think about some of the mental health challenges we have, people who, we're hearing about it so much, loneliness, social isolation, people feeling disconnected. One of them, there's obviously lots that go into that, but one of those things is to be able to serve, to come and have an experience, to come alongside other people, maybe in that moment, even if you're going through a very difficult time, that you can forget that for just a moment while you're helping someone else. And to be a witness as a 10-year-old, right? Yeah. To be a witness to all these other people. I always wanted to bring my kids when they were little, because who doesn't want their kid to grow up to be one of our Vincentians delivering food boxes, right? And kids know, they can sense it. And to help all of us realize, every one of us, no matter the gifts and talents that we have something to share, even if you're going through a rough time. That's why for our guests, the people who live with us, to be able to volunteer, you can always share, and it always gives something back to you, always. This, again, is always an amazing experience to talk to you. I appreciate you coming and telling the story. I think this is going to open a lot of eyes for people that maybe are not as familiar as they should be. But once again, your work in the community is so not just admirable, but necessary. So thanks for the continued work of St. Vincent de Paul and everything you've done in this community. It is amazing, and I appreciate you sharing your story. No, thank you for having me, and thank you for just being such a great cheerleader and ambassador, and just for the heart. You have such a compassionate heart, and that's really what you share with so many organizations and people, and with all your fans that are out there. We're just grateful. Thank you for how much you care about St. Vincent de Paul. This is what I'm going to ask you to share. I want you to watch it, but when you're done watching it, tell someone else to watch it, because you're going to be amazed by the work that they do. Thanks for watching.